Time to get you ready for the game.
Here comes Yelich to the plate. Covering is the pitcher. Safe.
Welcome to the Baseball Pregame Show, presented by Import Minded, your trusted choice for exceptional vehicle care on South 27th, just north of 894. Tonight, Milwaukee returns home for the weekend to host Washington.
Yelich delivers in the clutch.
We'll preview tonight's matchup on the mound.
I don't know how many innings I'm going to go, obviously, but yeah, I mean, just kind of going out there and just letting it eat.
Thoughts on the lineup?
Yeah, we got a good lineup. We got guys who are going to get on base, steal bases, play good defense.
And all of the storylines heading into tonight's game.
We weren't sharp defensively. 3 or 4 plays that we didn't make ended up creating runs. Not sharp on defense, but again, guys, 4 of our top 6 hitters are not playing.
So let's get to it.
I mean, we have the best fans in the world.
Here is your host, Hunter Baumgardt.
It's a chilly Friday night, but it's a Friday night for baseball in Milwaukee as the Brewers get set to take on the Washington Nationals in Game 1 of a 3-game weekend series at American Family Field, featuring the new City Connect uniforms, or maybe the State Connect uniforms, featuring Wisco across the front of their jerseys. Welcome in. Excited to take you for the next hour, getting you set for Brewers baseball as the Brewers and the Nationals do battle for the first time in 2026. This is the first time the Brewers have faced a National League opponent in 2026, and they will do so with Aaron Ashby getting the ball first. He is going to go first. He is the opener for Pat Murphy and the Milwaukee Brewers, and he faces Jake Irvin on the mound for the Washington Nationals. Now, Chad Patrick was slated to start tonight's game for the Brewers. He is still slated to pitch, but most likely the first out of the bullpen. And Aaron Ashby doing what he did so many times in 2026 or 2025, now doing it again in 2026, the Aaron Ashby opener gambit, so to speak. And that is exactly what we'll get tonight. The lefty Aaron Ashby will start. How many innings does he go? We shall see. Does he go a full time through the Nationals order? I don't know. We'll have to see. But what we do know is that Aaron Ashby is the opener for the Milwaukee Brewers as they come into this one 8-4 on the season, coming off a couple of back-to-back losses for the first time this season as they unfortunately lost to Boston the final 2 games of that series. The Nationals come into this game 4-8 on the season, so the record flipped for the Nationals. But some interesting numbers that the Nationals have pitching-wise and offensively. We'll get to those in a little bit. We'll also get to Pat Murphy's comments. Was down at the ballpark just a bit ago, and it got a chance to hear Pat Murphy's pregame press conference, and he talked about a myriad of different things. Of course, one being that Brandon Sproat was supposed to start tomorrow, and he is no longer starting tomorrow. Kyle Harrison is going to start tomorrow, and then Brandon Woodruff is going to start on Sunday. So originally it lined up as Chad Patrick tonight, Brandon Sproat Saturday, and then Sunday Kyle Harrison. Sproat not going to be starting tomorrow, but we'll hear Pat Murphy expound on this topic a little bit in the future next segment. But what we do know is that Brandon Sproat is available out of the bullpen tonight, so we could see him in a relief role. So it makes a lot of sense with the off days that the Brewers had. They had one yesterday, and of course they'll have one again on Monday, and that just allows you to skip his spot in the rotation if you want to. So his spot in the rotation might just be a bullpen outing, but Pat Murphy confirming that he is still part of the starting rotation. We'll hear Pat Murphy's full comments coming up in a little while. And let's get you the starting lineups like we do each and every night on the Baseball Pregame Show. Get you the lineups to start the show. And let's start with the visiting Washington Nationals coming in with a 4-8 record. As I mentioned, Jake Irvin on the mound. Irvin is 1-1 with an 8.00 ERA. For the Nationals, leading off and in right field will be James Wood. Batting second at first base, Curtis Mead. Batting third in left field, Dalen Lyle. Cleanup hitter, third baseman Brady House. That just makes sense for a cleanup hitter. Brady House. I don't know. It just feels like it makes sense for a cleanup hitter. Batting fifth at shortstop, C.J. Abrams. Batting sixth in center field, former Brewer Joey Weimer, who's had a great start to the 2026 season for Washington. Batting seventh as the designated hitter is going to be Luis Garcia Jr. Batting eighth at second base, Jorby Bibas. Batting ninth and behind the plate, Keibert Ruiz. So for the Nationals, it is Wood, Mead, Lyle, House, Abrams, Weimer, Garcia Jr., Bibas, and Ruiz. Now for the Milwaukee Brewers, guess who's back again. It's Bryce Terang leading things off at second base for the Milwaukee Brewers. Batting second and behind the plate, William Contreras. Batting third as the designated hitter, Christian Yelich. The cleanup hitter tonight, center fielder Garrett Mitchell. Batting fifth and at first base, Jake Bowers. Batting sixth at third base, Luis Rengifo. Batting seventh and right field, Sal Frelick. Batting eighth and in left field, Blake Perkins. And batting ninth at shortstop will be David Hamilton this evening. So for the Brewers, it's Terang, Contreras, Yelich, Mitchell, Bowers, Rengifo, Frelick, Perkins, and Hamilton. And good to see Bryce Terang back in that lineup after missing the last couple of days, but gets 3 full days off. And he is back after missing some time with the ankle/foot tendinitis. And good news that he is back in that lineup for the Milwaukee Brewers and Pat Murphy against the Nationals tonight. He was moving around great on the field, taking some ground balls before the game. If you missed it, go check out my socials, whether it's X, Instagram. X has the video of Bryce Terang. Feel free to follow it at Hunter B on Air for coverage from the ballpark throughout the weekend and each and every home game. Okay, so let's get to the news of the day, the transaction of the day for the Milwaukee Brewers, and it was Easton McGee. Easton McGee is coming up for the Milwaukee Brewers from AAA Nashville. Yesterday, the Brewers optioned Shane Drowan back to AAA, and it wasn't necessarily a reflection on how he did on the mound in his Major League debut on Wednesday afternoon. He didn't, of course, do great, but it was okay, at least through the first couple of innings. But the Brewers just needed a fresh arm in that bullpen, and it made sense to do that after Shane Drowan went multiple innings on Wednesday. Send him back down, and then Easton McGee, who just barely missed out on the opening day roster. If you remember, he was all set to make the opening day roster, but then they traded for Jake Woodford and from Tampa, and Jake Woodford has been on the roster ever since. Easton McGee starts the year with the Nashville Sounds at AAA, but now he is back in Milwaukee and going to be with the big league club for at least the time being. So that is the news of the day. Easton McGee up from Nashville, Shane Drowan down to AAA. And again, the starting pitchers for this weekend for the Milwaukee Brewers now lay out like this. Aaron Ashby will open tonight, followed by Chad Patrick, and then Kyle Harrison tomorrow, and then Brandon Woodruff coming up on Sunday. That is how the starting pitchers go for the Milwaukee Brewers. Now, how good are the Washington Nationals? How good is the team that's coming in to American Family Field this weekend on Wisco weekend, which we'll get more into here in a little while, because the Brewers are going to be wearing their State Connect jerseys, and they're kind of going by basically Wisconsin this weekend. If you look at the lineup that they put, the social media graphic on the lineup, it says Wis versus Wash. So they're really going with this Wisconsin thing all weekend, which I love. It's a representation of the team, or of the state, I should say, and the state's team. And Pat Murphy actually expounded upon that fact of how the Brewers are Wisconsin's team, and we'll get to that in a little while as well. But how good are these Washington Nationals, or how bad, I guess, right? They're 4-8 on the season, but they have some interesting numbers when you take a deep dive into what the Nationals have done so far. They dropped a couple of games to the St. Louis Cardinals in their last series, but they have scored the second most runs in the National League at 71 runs so far this season. That's the second most. However, they've given up the most runs in the National League by far. They've given up 78 runs on the season so far. You know what the second most is as far as runs allowed in the National League? It is the St. Louis Cardinals at 62. So, mind you, think about this. The Washington Nationals have given up 78 runs on the season. They have also, scored 71. So their offense has been really good. Their pitching has been not so good. And they lead that runs allowed category by 16 runs. So very lopsided. And so, the offense has been productive overall for Washington. So I think, you can expect tough at-bats from them. And they also like to run. Pat Murphy talked about that before the game today, about how this team likes to run, and you got to be careful of that. Just like other teams have to be careful of what the Brewers do when they run, and the stolen bases and the speed they have on their lineup. But Washington has been able to score runs offensively, but their pitchers have not held that. I mean, if you're the second most productive offense when it comes to runs in the National League, you would think you're better than 4-8. But their pitching just has not been there. 78 runs allowed. The next team is at 62 in the St. Louis Cardinals. So that is obviously a significant change when you look at the offense compared to the pitching and what the Nationals have allowed. So we'll see. I think, it's like any time in baseball, right? You expect one thing and you probably are going to get another. So as much as maybe you think it's going to be an offensive series and it'll be maybe some high scoring games, maybe we'll get some 2-1 games, and Pat Murphy's kind of like, he was talking about stolen bases and risking things on the base paths and different things before the game. And he kind of pointed out, well, a lot of these games have been low scoring to start this season. And he's kind of like, I wonder if teams are going to start to take more risks on the base paths to score more runs. Now, it's colder weather. He pointed that out too, is a lot of these games are being played in colder weather and that can favor the pitchers sometimes. But boy, it is going to be interesting to see how, as we get into the summer months, if that does change and if those lower scores become higher scores, or I don't know. I mean, I haven't done the study. It just was pointed out by Pat Murphy before the game today, but I just thought it was interesting that he pointed that out and saying, wonder if the stolen base, which has already gone up because the bigger bases and everything like that. But I wonder if that is going to, in turn, be something that even more teams look at, especially because the Brewers have had so much success with it. The Brewers lead Major League Baseball coming into tonight with 23 stolen bases on the year, and they have at least one steal in all but one game. And that was the first game against Kansas City in that doubleheader last Saturday. So that's a little peek into the Nationals as far as their numbers go. You look at the Nationals pitcher tonight. It is Jake Irvin. How have the Brewers fared against Jake Irvin? Well, let's look individually at some of the hitters that will be facing Jake Irvin tonight. William Contreras, he has a couple of homers against Jake Irvin in his career. In 14 at-bats, he has a couple of home runs. Sal Frelick in 13 at-bats is batting .385 against Jake Irvin. So that's very promising. You have Bryce Terang, who has struggled a bit against Jake Irvin. 14 at-bats, has hit .214 in his career. Again, Jake Irvin, a right-handed pitcher. Christian Yelich, he's been pretty good against Jake Irvin. Only 11 at-bats, but he's hitting .545 in those 11 at-bats against Jake Irvin. So watch for Contreras, watch for Frelick, watch for Yelich. They've had career success against Jake Irvin, and hopefully that'll continue tonight. Now, the Nationals against Ashby. Now, again, we don't know how long Ashby's going to go. They're going with the opener. We'll see. But at least from the looks of it, Luis Garcia Jr. has the most at-bats on the Nationals against Ashby. He's hitting .500 in just 6 at-bats. Ruiz, the catcher, is batting .333 in just 3 at-bats, and then nobody else in the Nationals has more than 2 at-bats against Ashby. This is a very young Nationals team, a very inexperienced Nationals team when it comes to their lineup. This is a team that's still building their foundation, so to speak, and a rebuild. You could say that for sure. But they have some talent for sure in that lineup. You got Abrams, you got Wood, and then Brady House as well. I think House hit a home run, maybe a couple against the Brewers last year. So that is how the Nationals stack up against Ashby. But this is a series where the Brewers should win a couple of games. They should bounce back, hopefully get the offense going against the pitching staff that has very much struggled in the Washington Nationals. And hopefully the Brewers can turn this thing around as far as the offense goes. Now, the pitching I wasn't too concerned about in that Boston series. Really, a couple of innings did them in. And the walks. I mean, the Brewers walked way too many batters in those games. And you look at especially, like Jacob Mizorowski's inning, right? He walks the bases loaded. Those 3 runs score. They end up losing 3-2. Shane Drowan walks 3 batters in his last inning. Red Sox end up scoring 3 runs. They end up winning 5-0. So that was the only really concern I had, were the walks, because the bullpen did good. Bullpen went 8 1/3 against Boston in those 2 losses and only gave up 2 earned runs. So it wasn't like they were losing games left and right. So overall, what do I think the Brewers have to do in this series? Go back to hitting the baseball, because this offense was one of the best through the first 10 games. And then the last 2, they've gotten a little off that. So get a little, get some home cooking, get some Wisco cooking, get some supper club cooking here tonight. And then get that offense rolling again. I think that's my main key to this weekend for the Brewers, trying to take 2 out of 3 against Washington, is that offense. Get that offense rolling again. Like I said, Contreras, Frelick, Yelich have had some success against national starter Jake Irvin. I mentioned the City Connects, and tonight is the debut. We, of course, had the Brew Crew City Connect jerseys that the Brewers wore with the baby blue or powder blue, I should say, throughout the last few years. I loved those. Those were awesome. Again, some people like them, some people don't, just like the Wisco thing. I know there's been some pushback against the Wisco. People may be thinking the Brewers, with the little grill should have been on the front. You can have your opinions. That's fine. If the Brewers win in them, you can wear them every night for all I care, right? All you want is the Brewers win at the end of the day. But I thought we'd go a little bit into where these jerseys and uniforms come from. Where did they get these ideas? So I want to bring up first, and if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook or X, we are live and would love to hear your comments or questions before tonight's game. But if you're watching, you're going to see here, I'm putting this up on the stream, is that kind of some different explanations for why certain things are happening on the jersey. So picture them in your mind. Remember, it's a blue jersey with Wisco on the front and the sunset gradient throughout the Wisco, and then the numbers as well. The hat is a W with the Wisconsin outline in the background, and it's a blue hat and gray pants. So the base blue is representing of the endless shorelines, lakes, and rivers influence and how they influence our lifestyle, whether it's kayaking, the Milwaukee River, casting a line in Eagle River, or drilling through the ice on Lake Mendota. A body of water is never still in Wisconsin. So the base blue is for the water. There's an accent of cream in it. That color recalls the sandy shores of inland lakes, beaches of Door County on Lake Michigan, and the state's iconic sandstone bluffs. That is why some cream is in it. Sunset gradient, again, I mentioned that throughout the Wisco on the front and the numbers on the back. The orange, yellows, and blues make for a gradient as picturesque as a Wisconsin sunset. Now, the typography pays homage to the American Association Milwaukee Brewers Baseball Club of the early 20th century, melded with classic aesthetics of Wisconsin supper clubs and brewery label art. And then the bobber icon, which is small on the jersey, but also you'll see that on the scoreboard and around the park, this and on different merchandise that they're selling as well. That is tying the state's rich fishing culture. This new mark is a reinvention of the grill patch from the first Brewers City Connect. So you remember the grill, it's now turned into a bobber. A bobber and a baseball perfectly afloat showcases Wisconsin's other favorite pastime. These pictures on the stream, courtesy of the Milwaukee Brewers. Now, you also have a wheat braid, which is a nod to the farming industry that powers our state and our namesake brewing industry. So you'll see the wheat braid on the jerseys as well. The sleeve patch, which I think people are falling in love with already, and it's awesome. It's the Barrel Man, reimagined, inspired by the American Association Milwaukee Brewers. It sits above the Wisconsin state outline, showcasing Brewers fandom across every county in the state. And then on the collar of the jersey, it says Forward, which is the state motto. It's a commitment to progress, innovation, and heritage, proudly displayed on the collar of the jerseys. So that is the explanation from the Milwaukee Brewers on each part of the jersey. So you will see these jerseys displayed if you're watching the game on Brewers TV tonight, or if you're going to the ballpark and going to see the jerseys, that is what you will see, and kind of an explanation of all of it. I think everybody can have their opinion on it. I thought, to be honest with you, I thought it was really neat to see them in person today, and I think you'll like them even better on the players. Like, we saw the leaked photo of it, right? And then to see it on the players in pictures, I thought it looked better than the leaked photo. And then I thought today when I went to the ballpark pregame, I thought it looked better on the players and the coaches and the staff compared to even how it looked in the pictures on the players and the coaches and the staff. And they have all these sorts of, they were wearing like, mango color. They're calling it mango colored, long sleeve tees today. They were wearing blue, long sleeves with Brewers in the sunset gradient across, which I know a lot of people are like, maybe they should have put that on the jersey. I don't totally disagree. Maybe they should have put that instead of the Wisco. The Wisco's unique. It ties, it brings in the state. And that's what I like about it. It clearly is the state, right? The Brewers are across every other, Jersey or Milwaukee, right? It's Milwaukee or Brewers. Why not put something that says, and if you put Wisconsin, it kind of has ties to the university then, and I don't know if you want to do that. So what else are you going to put there? I know Drew talked about the good land this morning. Maybe that's something you'd consider, but I think Wisco is definitely not a bad choice, and I like it, and I think it ties in the entire state. And guess who talked about the Brewers being the state's team today in his pregame press conference? Brewers manager Pat Murphy. We're going to get to that on the other side. We'll also hear Pat Murphy talking about Brandon Sproat, why he isn't starting tomorrow, but why he's available in the bullpen. We'll also hear Pat Murphy talking about injury updates when it comes to Jackson Churio and Andrew Vaughn, as they're both trying to heal their hands up and get back to playing as soon as possible. So we'll be right back. Again, we are live on YouTube, Facebook, and X. Search Fox Sports Radio Wisconsin. We are also live, of course, on Fox Sports 920 in Milwaukee and everywhere on the iHeart Radio app. Want to hear from you on the NicoletLaw.com talk and text line at 877-794-1973. We'll be right back. You're listening to the Baseball Pregame Show presented by Import Minded on Fox Sports 920.
back to the Baseball Pregame Show on Fox Sports 920. Presented by Import Minded, your trusted choice for exceptional vehicle care on South 27th, just north of 894. Here's your host, Hunter Baumgardt.
Brewers and Nationals at American Family Field. We're about 45 minutes away or so from first pitch. Aaron Ashby will be throwing the first pitch tonight. If you looked at your records and it said Chad Patrick, then it's wrong. It's going to be Aaron Ashby who's going to be the opener for the Brewers. Now, Chad Patrick is scheduled to follow tonight against the Washington Nationals. But yes, they are going with the opener again, and that is Aaron Ashby, who seems to pitch every game for the Milwaukee Brewers, especially like last year and now again into this year. As I mentioned, Chad Patrick likely to follow Aaron Ashby tonight, and he has thrown in 2 games so far, 2 starts. He's arguably been maybe the best pitcher, the starting pitcher that the Brewers have had so far. He's in 2 starts. He's 1-0 with a 0.96 ERA, and he pitched that first game of the doubleheader against Kansas City last Saturday. The Brewers earned a 5-2 win. He went 5 innings, allowed 4 hits, didn't allow a run, walked 3, struck out 3, and threw 86 pitches. And in his first outing against the Chicago White Sox back on March 28th, he threw 4 1/3, gave up 5 hits, just 1 earned run, 1 walk, 4 strikeouts, and a home run on 74 pitches. Remember, Chad Patrick was acquired from Oakland in the Abraham Toro deal back in November of 23. So last year went 3-8 with a 3.53 ERA in his first major league season. He was in 27 games, 23 starts. Remember, he was in the bullpen later in the season. And it's interesting. They're going Ashby, obviously a different type of pitcher, right-hander against, Ashby's a lefty, and then you have Chad Patrick coming in as a righty. You kind of like it. And Brandon Sproat is available out of the bullpen tonight. Brandon Sproat has struggled so far this season overall. I think we saw some definite steps in the right direction when Brandon Sproat took the mound against the Kansas City Royals last weekend in the second game of the doubleheader. They opened for him with Logan Henderson, and then he came in, was good for a few innings, but that last inning kind of did him in and made the numbers look maybe worse than they were. And obviously his first outing against the White Sox wasn't great, and he was pitching to a guy making his MLB debut in Jefferson Caro. But this is what Pat Murphy had to say when asked about Brandon Sproat. So take a listen. This is Pat Murphy pregame today about Brandon Sproat and if he's in the rotation and when he might pitch next.
Murphy, we had got word that you bumped up a couple of your starting pitchers for this weekend, and Sproat is no longer on that list. Is he
He's going to pitch, yeah. He's still in our rotation. It's just the way things have worked out. We're starting opener today, and sometimes this happens when you have the extra off days and things like that. So Sproat will pitch, and he'll be back in the rotation.
Will he have any time in between available out there in the
He's
pen?
available tonight.
Is it more of a matchup thing with just this series? With maybe thinking he runs it better.
I think it's a lot of all that. We're always trying to, you guys will obviously know we're very inexperienced on the hill and trying to thread the needle. So these are the types of things you do.
Trying to thread the needle. I think it's a good way, and Murph uses that phrase fairly often, talking about threading the needle and trying to make sure that they are doing what's best for the player and the team. They've done a really good job with it when it comes to position players and obviously pitchers as well. They brought countless pitchers into the organization at this point who have done really well. So I think that's something to consider when you look at the moves that they make. They're for a reason, and they think it's best for the player and obviously for the team as well. And I don't mind it. I mean, we've seen them do it with pitchers before where, maybe they rough couple starts, throw them in the bullpen, get them thinking a little differently. You can throw a guy in the bullpen, and then maybe he doesn't have as much time to think about it, right? He's going into tonight's game not knowing if he's going to pitch. And if he's called upon, it's okay, get ready and go out there and pitch. And maybe that, little bit of less mental time to kind of overthink it could be helpful for a young player. However, if you go in and you're used to being a starter and you go in and you're unprepared, that's the other side of that, right? So there's a balancing act, and Pat Murphy did talk about that before the game too, of like it can be good and it can be bad, just depending. But obviously, they think it's going to be a good thing for him to skip this round in the rotation. I would expect him to pitch, next when he's called upon next. Maybe it's against Toronto next week. Maybe it's on the next road trip when they go to Miami and Detroit. But I do think he'll pitch in the next round of the rotation. But they have in this month many off days. So that is what helps them is they don't need him to pitch this weekend because these guys are on normal rest with the off day. They have an off day. They had an off day yesterday. They have an off day Monday. And then they're off the next 2 Mondays. So they're off the next, they were off yesterday. Now they're off the next 3 Mondays, to put it easy. So with having 2 off days in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days, 2 off days in 5 days, you can mess around with your rotation a little bit and have the guys like Miz and Woody and Harrison and Patrick who have been doing better than Sproat through the first 2 times in the rotation. Have those guys pitch maybe a little, one time through while Sproat gains his footing and maybe helps out with the bullpen a little bit. And then come the next time through, whether it's against Toronto next week at American Family Field or in Miami, then you're ready to rock and roll. So I don't, like Pat Murphy said, he's going to be still in the rotation. It's just one time through where he struggled and maybe you move into the pen a little bit. Feel free to give us a comment or a text on the NicoletLaw.com talk and text line. That's 877-794-1973. Or you can feel free to hit us up on Facebook, YouTube, or X as well. Charles, appreciate you tuning in over there on YouTube. And Charles, a frequent listener of the Baseball Pregame Show, which we appreciate very much. And this Baseball Pregame Show, a reminder, it's on 1 hour before weeknight games on Fox Sports 920, WOKY AM Milwaukee, and of course, streaming live on YouTube, Facebook, and X. So our next show is going to be on Tuesday when the Brewers take on the Toronto Blue Jays. But we've still got a bunch of time left in this one, and we are going to make the most of it. How about Jackson Chourio and Andrew Vaughn? Obviously, 2 of the biggest parts of the team that have not been able to play for the Brewers so far, 2 of their best right-handed bats. Those 2 and Quinn Priester have been the most significant injuries the Brewers have suffered so far in 2026. This is what Brewers manager Pat Murphy had to say about Chourio and Vaughn. Little update on those guys.
Well, it's healing. It's not quite ready to happen.
Well, let me give you context. This is first on Chourio, and then you'll hear the question about Vaughn.
Well, it's healing. It's not quite ready to have him go full force yet. They're worried about the check swing, like when you face live and you do live things, they're worried about that. There's a fine line between being aggressive with it or being conservative with it. It's just a fine line. We're trying to do everything we can. Everybody wants him to play as quickly as possible, but they want him to play the whole season if possible. So,
will there be a plan for another image for him to get cleared to start hitting?
No.
Or no? Okay.
They're satisfied already that it's healed. Not 100%, but they're satisfied at the rate it's healing. No reason for it to stop. So I think you'll see him do some base running today and throwing, catching, all that stuff today, and getting himself ramped up in preparation for when it's time to feel good about him swinging.
How about the progress report on Vaughn?
Yeah, he got his stitches out. Now it's a matter of what's really important in those hamate. If you've seen his incision, what's really important is that heals correctly. Once that heals, you can do as much as you want. And he's a lot weaker in that hand right now, but we'll build that back up. And problem is if you do too much on it too soon, then you'll build up. First of all, the wound has to heal completely. Then there's a chance for tendonitis and all that other stuff if you go too much too soon. So again, we're trying to thread the needle on that. So we'll try to get him going to his tolerance level.
So obviously Vaughn is a little further out than Jackson Chourio. Chourio, I saw him doing some stretching today. As you heard, he is not fully healed yet, but they feel like they can go without another scan and just continue to progress forward. And so he's not cleared for hitting yet. So obviously that is a significant spot that he needs to be at. If you remember back, obviously he was placed on the IL on opening day. That was Thursday, March 28th. We're 2 weeks out from that. On that day, the timeline was 2 to 4 weeks. We are definitely going to be more towards 4 weeks. Matt Arnold said on the podcast, The Show, with John Heyman and Joel Sherman earlier this week, he gave an update on Jackson Churio's timeline, and this was the timeline he gave.
I would expect Jackson Churio to be back hopefully within, maybe early May, something in that range. But again, these things heal at their own pace. So it's hard to say, but I would say probably right in that range.
Yeah, again, that was on the show with John Heyman and Joel Sherman. Great interview, by the way, if you want to check that out with Matt Arnold. But he says early May. The Brewers have said as a whole, when we got the update maybe a week ago, it was going to be mid to late April. I would guess late April, early May for Jackson Churio. You want him, and as Murph said, you want him back for the rest of the season. You don't want this to go have another injury. You don't want it to come back too soon. Just get it healed. As much as this lineup needs Jackson Churio, and I know they went 8-2 to start the year without him, but I think the last two games are very, evidentiary, if you will. They have a lot of. When you say, Hunter, what's the evidence for Jackson Churio needing to be in the lineup? I point you to Game 2 and Game 3 in Boston at Fenway Park, especially Game 2. I mean, Game 2 is exactly it, right? You're facing a good lefty in Garrett Crochet. You want your righties in the lineup. And when you have Churio and Vaughn out, it adds insult to injury. But Jackson Churio specifically, who's your kind of young budding superstar here, you want him in the lineup. And I think that really showed on Tuesday night when they lost 3-2 to Boston. So, yeah, you want him back. But again, you want him for the rest of the season, not just one. Lex Go Brewers says we need Sproat to figure out how to pitch to lefties. Yeah, I mean, it's growing pains, right? It's growing pains with Brandon Sproat right now. It is a situation where you knew, and who knows, maybe Kyle Harrison goes through growing pains eventually as well this season. But you knew that with a young rotation, and as Pat Murphy said, they're pretty inexperienced on the bump. Sproat had, I believe, 4 major league starts coming in, so he has 6 major league starts right now. They're going to have to learn kind of on the job, and that is okay. Like, that's where the Brewers are. Look, when you trade Freddie Peralta away, you're going to get younger. You're going to get more inexperienced. And what Pat Murphy has said is he has had Sproat and Harrison in that starting rotation basically through the whole spring. He's wanted those two guys in. Now, Sproat will continue to be in. They may skip him this time in the rotation, but he'll still be in the rotation. But I think something to keep in mind with him and with Harrison and even Patrick, who will follow Ashby likely tonight, is and Miz, honestly, Miz too. They're learning on the job here, right? They're at the major league level, so they're expected to perform, no doubt, right? And you gave up a lot to get Harrison. You gave up a lot to get Sproat, and Miz is your young phenom. But you also know that there are going to be some growing pains. I'm okay with that just because that's how these guys are going to get better. Look, remember Bryce Terang at the plate his first year? Not great. Sal Frelick has gone through ups and downs, right? We've seen young players not do great right away. But what has Bryce Terang grown into? A really, 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 really good second baseman. So I think you have to, it's kind of like that with Sproat. Like I am at Priester. Again, I go back to this. I've said this on other pregame shows and Milwaukee Baseball Tonight shows so far this season. And when I joined the huddle, it's the fact that, remember when Quinn Priesters first started with the Brewers last year? He was not great through his first month. Had the rough outing when he came in after the opener against the Cubs. But he turned it around, and the Brewers won 19 straight games with him on the mound. So are they going to do that again with a pitcher? It's hard to do that, right? Again, with the winning streak. But what I'm saying is Sproat could get there for sure. He has a ton of potential. We've heard the coaching staff rave. We've heard people around baseball talk about his potential. So he has a lot of it for sure. You just got to also kind of accept that there's going to be growing pains. Now, I feel like we've accepted that a little bit with the lineup the last couple of years, and now it's shifted to the rotation where you had more of an experienced rotation the last couple of seasons. Overall, you didn't. It's not like maybe you were the most experienced in the league, but overall, your lineup was a little more inexperienced, and your rotation was a little more experienced, and now it's kind of flipped. And so we're kind of seeing the growing pains now on the pitching side. So I think that's kind of what we're seeing, whether it's lefties, whether it's righties, whatever it happens to be, there are going to be growing pains with these guys. And I think we somehow, to some extent, need to be patient as well. One last clip from Pat Murphy's pregame press conference today when I was down at the ballpark. And this stood out. This is the first time he was asked about the Wisco jerseys, about the City Connect or State Connect jerseys that they're going to debut here in about a half an hour. And first, Pat Murphy said he liked the fit. But then also, he talks about how he realized, remember, he went on a tour this offseason and did speeches or just some Q&A and did that kind of thing and talked to crowds throughout the state in the offseason. And he said that's when he really realized that this really is the state's team.
The Brewers, what I learned this summer this fall, this offseason, is Brewers is Wisconsin's team, baseball team. Not that I didn't know that. It was kind of a cool revelation.
How did you find that out, from traveling?
Yeah, traveling around and being around different people from Wausau and Eau Claire and La Crosse and Green Bay, and just talking to those people. And yeah, I just thought, wow, these people love the Brewers. They're 4 hours away. It's crazy.
Yeah, these people love the Brewers and they're 4 hours away. Holy smokes. Yeah. The Brewers are definitely the state's team, right? And so I think we have to remember that when we look at these jerseys. I know Wisco maybe isn't the most optimal of slogan across the front of that jersey. I get it. But I think the intent and the message is spot on. I love how they expanded it from Milwaukee. Unfortunately, the Wisco has gotten the most attention. But what I absolutely love is the intent to include the whole state in it. If you go to other City Connects, they're not doing that. Maybe the Texas did with the Tejas, but with the TEJAS, they just basically, put it into Tejas, from Texas. And maybe that is, but they're already the Texas Rangers. Milwaukee is Milwaukee Brewers, but now you've got a state allegiance with the Wisco thing. And like I said, you're going to see, like, when they list the final score, I'm guessing you'll see, Wis, 3 or whatever tonight, whether it's scoreboard at the ballpark or, it could be in the box score, whatever it happens to be, not on the official things. Obviously, it's still going to say Brewers, but you're going to have that. And they're showing it right now on Brewers TV. Tim Dillard holding up the jersey that he has. Oh, it says Dillard and has his number 48 on there. It's cool. Like I said, I think it's cooler in person. And I think it'll be cool on TV tonight if you're watching on Brewers TV. So, again, I love how Pat Murphy, he said a very similar message at opening day, if you remember as well, how saying it's the state's team. It's not just Milwaukee's team. And he pointed out how there was a reporter from Wausau there on opening day and a reporter from Green Bay there on opening day. And he just pointed out how he went to those different cities and the Brewers fever was real. And so I think the intent with these City Connect jerseys is great. I love it. Maybe you could have chose something different than Wisco, but again, I love the intent. So that's kind of my thought on it. Want to hear from you on the NicoletLaw.com talking text line. That's 877-794-1973 or on YouTube, Facebook, or X. Want to hear from you there. One more segment to go. Brewers and Nationals about 27 minutes away at American Family Field as Aaron Ashby on the mound against Jake Irvin. When we come back, I'll give you the lineups one more time. And also, can you give us some fast facts that'll make you a little smarter as you watch tonight's game? Maybe you could text someone a stat or something in the middle of the game and said, oh, your friend will be like, oh, that's impressive. And you'll be like, yeah, I heard it on the Baseball Pregame Show. Presented by Import Minded right here on Fox Sports 920.
Milwaukee takes the field in a matter of minutes. It's time to take a look at tonight's lineup on the Baseball Pregame Show, presented by Import Minded, your trusted choice for exceptional vehicle care on South 27th, just north of 894. Here's Hunter Baumgardt.
Getting you set for Brewers and Nationals from American Family Field on this Friday night in Milwaukee. I know the Bucks are also playing tonight. They've got their final home game of the season. Just saw a picture of Giannis in a sweatshirt looking on. Could this be the final time the Bucks play at home while he's with the organization? And the Packers trading to Dontavian Wicks this afternoon. How random was that? That came out of nowhere, to me at least. But yes, so Dontavian Wicks is now a Philadelphia Eagle, as he is. Let me get you the exact notes on this, because remember, our sister station 95.7 Big FM is the home of the Green Bay Packers. The Packers traded Dontavian Wicks to the Eagles in exchange for a 2026 fifth-round pick and a 2027 sixth-round pick. So there you have it. Dontavian Wicks is headed to the Philadelphia Eagles. All right, back to baseball here. Let's get you the lineups one more time before we say goodbye. And if you missed it earlier, Bryce Terang is back in the lineup. They're showing him on Brewers TV right now. He looks sweet. These uniforms, I like them, okay? And I think this is going to be fun. I'm excited for it. He is back in the lineup. We'll get to the Brewers lineup in just a moment. For the Nationals, leading off and in right field, James Wood. Batting second at first base is Curtis Mead. Batting third in left field, Dalen Lyle. Batting cleanup at our third baseman, Brady House. Batting fifth at shortstop, C.J. Abrams. Batting sixth, center fielder, Joey Weimer, the former Brewer. Batting seventh, as the designated hitter, Luis Garcia Jr. Batting eighth at second base, Jorby Bibas. Batting ninth and behind the plate is Keibert Ruiz. So for the Nationals, it's Wood, Mead, Lyle, House, Abrams, Weimer, Garcia Jr., Bibas, and Ruiz. For the Milwaukee Brewers, leading off at second base, Bryce Terang back in that lineup. Batting second and behind the plate, William Contreras. Batting third as the designated hitter, Christian Yelich. Batting cleanup in center field, Garrett Mitchell. Batting fifth and at first base, Jake Bowers. Batting sixth at third base, Luis Rengifo. Batting seventh in right field, Sal Frelick. Batting eighth in left field, Blake Perkins. And batting ninth and at shortstop, David Hamilton. For the Brewers, it's Terang, Contreras, Yelich, Mitchell, Bowers, Rengifo, Frelick, Perkins, and Hamilton. And again, the transaction today, Easton McGee called up from AAA Nashville. Shane Drowan optioned there yesterday. That is the starting lineups for both the Brewers, who are 8-4, against the Nationals, who are 4-8. Aaron Ashby on the mound to start. He is going to be the opener, likely followed by Chad Patrick. And for the Nationals, it's Jake Irvin. Irvin comes in with a 1-1 record, 8.00 ERA. The Nationals overall, their pitching staff has not done well so far this season. See if the Brewers can take advantage of that. The Nationals have given up the most runs in the National League at 78. Second most, 62 with the St. Louis Cardinals. Now, also, the Chicago Cubs lost today. And Shota Imanaga pitched incredibly well, but the offense could not come through for the Chicago Cubs. The Pirates beat the Cubs today 2-0. The Pirates are now 8-5, by the way. Isn't that wild? But yeah, so that was what happened today. Shota Imanaga went 6 no-hit innings and then was pulled, and immediately Thielbar gave up 2 runs. That is a Craig Counsell special, folks. Yep. I'm not saying that he should have won more, because Imanaga threw 100 pitches. So it's not like you want to push a guy early in the year, but that is classic. Take him out, and immediately the bullpen gives it up, and the Pirates get 2 in the 7th inning, and they win it 2-0. Cubs out hit the Pirates, just couldn't get it going. They were 0 for 8 with runners in scoring position and left 11 base runners on base today. So the Pirates get the win 2-0, as the Brewers always, I'm keeping an eye on the Chicago Cubs. All right, couple of fast facts for you before I let you go on the baseball pregame show here. Couple things to make you a little smarter as you watch or listen to tonight's game. The Brewers swept the season series from the Nationals last year. They went 6-0 against Washington. It marked just the 6th season sweep of a team in franchise history with a minimum of 6 games. And they also did against the Dodgers, remember, last year in the regular season, which was apropos because then they were swept in the NLCS. The Brewers have committed just one error in their first 12 games. That was Jake Bauer's error in game 2 of the doubleheader against the Royals. Remember, they set the record for most games to start a season without an error. That went to 7 games. They've only committed one error through 12. And I mentioned this earlier, but one more time, the Brewers have 23 stolen bases on the season. Most in the majors, they have at least one steal in all but one game this season. So they continue to lead the major leagues in that category. Brewers, Nationals, American Family Field, tonight, 6:40, tomorrow, 6:10, Sunday, 1:10. Kyle Harrison will be on the mound tomorrow. Brandon Woodruff will be on the mound on Sunday, wearing the City Connect or the State Connect jerseys all weekend long. Looking forward to that. It is going to be a fun homestand. I'm looking forward to what these jerseys look like out on the field. I saw a little bit today when we were in the clubhouse and kind of all the different designs they had as far as, the long sleeve tees and the different warm-up apparel that each player has. That has been that is always super cool to see when it comes to the uniform and the different variations of the uniform, the long sleeve, the t-shirt, the sweatshirt, right? Because each player gets a bunch of different things. Their batting practice hats are that Barrel Man logo that is on those hats. So I know a lot of people were, kind of thinking maybe that should have been the hat design overall instead of the W on there. I don't totally disagree, but they do have those for batting practice hats. So something to keep in mind there, especially if you see video or something of batting practice as well. I know people were commenting on my video. I put a video out of them warming up today, and Joey Ortiz was taking ground balls at third base. That's not out of the ordinary, and of course he could play third base. You never know. So I know people were questioning that. That is the baseball pregame show presented by Import Minded here tonight. Brewers and Nationals coming up next. My next show Tuesday night when the Brewers take on the Blue Jays. I'll be on an hour before that game. Thanks so much for listening. It's been the baseball pregame show presented by Import Minded on Fox Sports 920. I'm Hunter Baumgardt. Have a great weekend.